Unless y'all want to tweet that out now.
What?
Well,
Yeah, they weren't paying attention.
it's time to talk about Lodi. Let me just adjust the audio a little bit. So, GDP Editor-in-Chief of Snooth here in Lodi, California, where it's the end of a beautiful day. We've spent tasting wine. We've got a great panel of wine writers behind us. Marcus Bokic of Bokic Cellars is going to talk to us a little bit about his wines and the wines of Lodi and the vines in the dirt and all of those details. And then we have Cameron King, the Executive Director of the Lodi Wine Grape Growers Association. Is that right? Did I get that right? Wine Grape Commission. Very close. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you are two distinct faces of Lodi's wine culture. So to kick this off, I'd love to just get a one sentence, one idea from you. What is Lodi wine? What should people be thinking about when they see or hear about Lodi wine?
I think the first word that comes to mind is innovation. Lodi is an area that is filled with people that are always coming from different backgrounds and trying different varietals. I think our wines speak to that, focusing on Spanish varietals.
It's hard for me to encapsulate things into one sentence, Greg. I'm a little bit wordy, but I would say that Lodi is a lot of different things. We've got a long history and heritage, but I would agree with Marcus, the innovation is there. We've got a real international flair. It's a real collection of people and wines and experiences from all over the world developed here in one region. It's pretty fantastic for people to learn and explore.
So unfortunately, 20 seconds before we went live, Cameron and Marcus were just chatting. And do you remember what you said? It was a fantastic.
You know what? It was a moment of brilliance,
everything.
And then it was gone. But it really was. The essence of it was that we are a collection of people and wines from all corners of the world. In our vineyards and in our wines and our winemakers, and so that's pretty special. And like I said, it's a great thing for people to come and visit or to find and seek out our wines and experience anytime.
And somewhere in there was people trying new and exciting things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, in fact, we had just been having a conversation before we went live on one of my neighbors who focuses entirely on German varietals, and they come from a long line of German ancestry in the Lodi region. We're doing Spanish varietals, and we have, of course, all those absolutely wonderful concentration of old vine Zinfandels, of which we're going to taste one today. So it's fun to see the diversity, and I'm just scratching on the surface there.
So just to, if I'm correct, just to sort of ground us, Chardonnay is the most popular, is the most commonly planted variety in Lodi, is that true?
Well, we're the leading producer of all the major grape varietals here in California, of Chardonnay and Sauvignon Blanc, Zinfandel, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot. I mean, we really are the major producer of all the major varietals, but we actually, speaking to that innovation, we grow over 100 different varieties of wine grapes in our vineyards here in Lodi. So we really have something from all corners of the world for people here.
And they do it well too, which is surprising, because you come here and you think you have a preconceived notion of what Lodi is going to be, because at least for me, Lodi has definitely built a brand around a certain style of Zinfandel. And then yesterday we went to Acquiesce Vineyards, white wines only, light, crisp wines that if you had blinded me on and then said they were from Lodi, I would have said no way, no way. So it really is fascinating to see that there's this very broad spectrum of styles, varieties. You guys have a liberty of doing what you want. I think you're discovering some great things, but at the same time, you're producing wines like our first wine, Lang Twins Sauvignon Blanc. It's a wine people will be familiar with. They'll know what to expect. It's there to really please people's palates who are comfortable with Sauvignon Blanc. We visited Lang Twins today. They're doing a phenomenal job on wildlife land reclamation. Can either of you speak a little bit about how important sustainability is here in Lodi? One of the fascinating things that a lot of people don't realize, everywhere we go, we get introduced to either the 4th, 5th, or 6th generation Lodi grape farmer. Mm-hmm. So sustainability has always been, this is your backyard.
Yeah, but before we get into sustainability, if I may, just again with innovation, when I started in the wine business, I was in Napa Valley, and in 1989, certainly Chardonnay, Merlot, Cabernet, and all the main varieties that we have here in Lodi today, in which Lodi is the leader in the state, it was not the case. There was a lot of Colombard, there was a lot of other varieties that really didn't exist here, or these others didn't exist here. And one of those stages or chapters of innovation was when the growers got together and said, you know, we're gonna look at these new varieties. We want to be on the cutting edge of what's going on. And now I think the next step is looking beyond those varieties and looking at these wonderful wines we had at Acquiesce and on other wines that we're going to be tasting today. But with regard to sustainability, the Lang Twins certainly are a leader in sustainability, and the Lodi Commission is also a strong leader in sustainability. In fact, the entire concept of integrated pest management and sustainability was started really in the early 90s with the Commission focusing its research committee on that. And the focus there was really understanding the parameters of what does sustainability mean. Not only are we talking about great wine quality, but we're talking about understanding our resources around us, our human resources, our water resources, our air resources, our wildlife habitat. And it's a very rigorous thing to be able to be certified by our certification standards to be sustainable.
And it's pretty exciting too. I mean, Lodi, you know, piggybacking off of that, is truly a leader in sustainable wine growing. In fact, it was in this region that was kind of the epicenter of the sustainable wine growing movement in the state of California. And a lot of the work that was done here was later extrapolated and utilized to develop some other programs. And so it's really kind of at the heart and core of what our vineyards and our growers are doing here in this region. It's a codification of what's always been done for those many generations to meet those standards of sustainability to move us forward. And so that's pretty spectacular for us to be able to have that tradition of being a leader in sustainability, and it continues to grow today. We have almost 30,000 acres that will be third-party accredited and certified under the Lodi Rules program. And our program is a little different. It is exactly that. It's a third-party accredited, which is the only program that can say that for sustainable wine growing. So.
Yeah, and I think that's key, because sustainability is a word that, much like organic 20 years ago, could get very gray, and people have their different definition of what that might mean personally to them. And if you ask them, it may be a bit of a foggy definition. And so the goal in Lodi was to make sure that we codified exactly what that meant, and then we qualified what people were doing through certification by a third party. That's the key. There's so many certification programs that are self-certifications, and I think they
pat on the back.
Right. Yeah, you're doing the right thing, Greg.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Go have a beer. Good for you.
Exactly. So, and it's rigorous. We have 30,000 acres, so that constitutes less than a third. And I can tell you from personal experience, it takes hours and hours and hours to get certified. However, I probably know my vineyards a lot better because of the process. So we as growers use this tool to understand our vineyards better.
And I think one of the real interesting parts of the Lodi picture is that it really was a grape growing community before it was a wine making community, before it was a wine grape growing community. So you have, everybody's got a real intimate connection to their land, 100 years, old vines frequently. So it often comes up in conversation that, you know, we talk about wine as a commodity, grapes as a commodity, and everybody seems to want to get away from whether it's a commodity in reality or not. That's not the way they're approaching it. That's not the way they're treating it. It might be the way a farmer gets by, but these really are intimate parts of their life, their family, and generational has come up repeatedly. And it definitely seems to be something that you learn from your grandfather, what to do in the vines and the vineyards, because he wanted to pass it down to his son and to his son and to his son. So it is fascinating to see that it's really this codification of existing protocols instead of something that's imposed and some fantasy bureaucratic ideas. These are really applicable, reasonable procedures that a lot of people were doing naturally. Maybe little tweaks here or there. But.
Well, and scientifically vetted. So you look at, you know, what are we applying in our vineyards today? What are all of our inputs? Well, what's the impact of every one of those inputs to the environment? And one can have a feeling about it, but really the best thing is to scientifically vet it so you can actually quantify and say, by doing this, I impact the environment less than if I were to do this. And now you give people an ability to make critical thoughts, choices for the betterment of and for the sustainability of their ranch into the next generation. So, with regard to winemaking, it's interesting because the first time I stepped into Lodi, I was actually here buying grapes for a winery that I represented in Napa, and I was often invited into people's barns to drink their home wine, and
Oh, the horror.
oh, the horror, and what I started hearing were the stories of all these old wineries that had gone defunct, and there had been quite a lot of wineries, and the number had attrition down to just a few.
Were these wineries post-prohibition?
Well, that's a good question. I'm not exactly sure. Certainly, many of them would have been wineries that were that had gone down during Prohibition. Others were, I know there were quite a few that had started up in the 40s, and then since it closed their doors through consolidation or being purchased by other larger wineries. And so by the time I entered in the Lodi scene, there were really about 5 major players, of which only 3 had facilities here in Lodi. And that was just, we're talking 15 years ago, and now there's over 100 wine brands, and there's a brand new wine culture. But I would argue that there was a wine culture here that went dormant, and now we're seeing the reemergence of that culture,
Right.
which is really exciting.
Yeah, there's this explosion taking place here in terms of both people who have been selling their grapes and multi-generational families, like you mentioned, that are now saying, you know what, we want to put our name on a label and begin to share our wines that are being made from our vineyards with the world. And so we're seeing this explosion of wineries that are developing here. Those 5, 6, 7, 8 wineries that were here 15, 20 years ago, we're now at 85 wineries, 65 tasting rooms. We're really seeing this wine renaissance taking place here in Lodi, and both in terms of new wines being offered and new wineries opening, but also the new varieties of grapes that are being grown and the varietal wines that are being made from them. And that makes Lodi a very exciting place to be right now, both to be and come and visit.
And just not to steal your thunder, but
Sure.
it's also, you just ended on visit, and just it's an amazing place to visit because you have great facilities, you have great restaurants, and we discussed this today amongst the wine writers I'm here with, when you go to a winery here, you're talking to the last name, you're talking to the son or the daughter or the father, somebody who's intimately involved. And when we were discussing it, we were commenting on the authenticity and the really welcoming feeling and the idea that people wanted to share something with you. And we came to the conclusion that that's just the way it is. This is not some press facade. There's no handling. There's been no marketing lessons for anybody. So when you come down here, you're going to get the same reception, and it's just fantastic to be able to come to someplace, and a lot of the wineries are adjacent to or close to their homes, and you really feel like you're stepping into the past, and B, into somebody's home, and it's just it's a blast to be here, because if you come back in 10 years or 20 years, things are going to change. Downtown's going to be at 40 wine tasting rooms, and so you're getting an, as you said, very exciting time. There's a lot of experimenting going on. There's a lot of things as a wine lover to discover that you would never suspect is here in Lodi.
Right. I always joke around. There's a lot of folks that play the Creedence Clearwater Revival song about being stuck in Lodi, and I think they were just absolutely ahead of their time, because this is a great place to be stuck, and it's a good opportunity to really take and come and experience what we see as extensions of our homes. Truthfully, the tasting rooms and the wineries are extensions of our family's histories and heritages and their homes, and that's how many of these folks feel.
And they're proud of it.
Absolutely.
There's a real Lodi pride.
Absolutely.
Oh, there is, and there is something that I had referred to the other night is the cohesiveness of this area. I've been very fortunate to be able to either farm directly in or visit a lot of wine grape growing regions in the world, and I have to say that Lodi is on the top of the list when it comes to growers trying to find common solutions. Mm-hmm. And I think IPM, integrated pest management, I think sustainability, I think the idea of sharing wine styles and understanding how to grow these new varieties, that openness that exists here, is something that hopefully will persist into the future, because it's a really beautiful experience from our point of view.
I think culturally, it will, and I'm going to go back to I think it's the farming background. Farmers always stick together,
right,
because they survive, they thrive as one. If you're doing well, I'm doing well. So I think that culture is so ingrained here that the people who are here now are certainly going to continue to collaborate in the future in a very tight-knit way. That's all we've seen is sharing.
Yeah.
People sharing, people planting. You brought cuttings in and didn't trademark them or patent them and shared them with the entire state, and I think that's sort of typical of what's happening here.
I'd say so, yeah, yeah. I have to say, one thing about Zinfandel that I absolutely love is that Lodi was known for Zinfandel, and Lodi was known for possibly for one style of Zinfandel. And I think that a lot of people who have not visited Lodi don't understand how much that has changed, how much we've changed not only in new varieties, but within the variety that almost defines us, how many new styles of Zinfandel.
Well, we'll get to that when we taste this in,
Yeah,
but it is
sure.
fascinating because you come in and you think, it's Lodi's in.
Yeah.
It's going to be one thing.
Yes,
And it's
but-
absolutely not.
It's absolutely not. So we should just dive into this, into the Lang Twin Sauvignon Blanc.
Sure.
I'm sure a lot of people are trying this at home.
Which is absolutely an appropriate thing to do. I mean, if you've got a great glass of Lodi wine in front of you, you should be trying it.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it has been a warm day.
It has been a warm
So
day.
a cool, crisp glass of Lodi Sauvignon Blanc seems to be an appropriate way to end a warm day in Lodi. But it's an amazing place because even it's early, it's end of April, it gets hot during the day, and then as visitors here, you wake up and you go outside in the morning in your shorts, and you have no idea why it's 50 degrees. Because last night it was really warm and toasty, and you're expecting the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's due to where we sit and our geography, and it absolutely defines us as a region and allows us to grow the variety of grapes that we do and to develop the flavors and the acidities that we get in our grapes. We sit directly east of the only gap in the Coast Mountain Range from the Pacific Ocean to the Sierra Nevada. And that Coast Mountain Range runs the entire length of the West Coast. And there's this little gap that sits right to the east of San Francisco, and we sit just to the east of that gap. And so these delta breezes and the ocean breezes that come off the Pacific and through the Golden Gate flow right through the delta to us and really provide us with these phenomenal cooling breezes that come into our area and cool us down at night such that we can have a 40, 45, 50 degree temperature differential from day to night. And that happens all summer long.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we feel it.
Yeah. Yeah, that diurnal fluctuation, that daytime high followed by a nighttime low that lets the vines build their sugars of the day, and at nighttime they can relax and rebuild their water reserves and not burn off all their acids that lead to nice crisp wine. So that diurnal fluctuation is key to our area and why it's so unique.
Why equate it to us as people? I mean, vines are so similar to us in a
Temperamental?
lot of ways. They can be temperamental, they can be smooth, they can be elegant. But, you know, we all need our time to chill out at night too, in order to be invigorated to grow the next day.
Yeah.
And so that differential is exactly there.
I just want to address a question. Somebody out there is asking if these wines are sold in Pennsylvania, the PLCB. I don't know. I would imagine that wines like the Lang Twin Sauvignon Blanc could very well be sold in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it very well may be. Yeah, they've worked hard on getting as much national distribution as possible, but exactly Pennsylvania, I don't know.
Yes.
So
We
they
do our
are
best,
a
but
lot of
that's all we
market.
can do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But this is a fantastic wine, and I think you're absolutely right. On a day where it's been a little bit warmer, this is a nice way to kind of cool down for the evening. You know, this is the Musqué clone, so it's a little bit different flavor profile. I get some more pineapple and
It's a little
some-
tropical.
A little tropical out of it that I absolutely love. It's got this bright, crisp acidity to it that really allows the fruit to just sing in there. That I think this is a really great glass of wine.
It's bright and juicy, and it's 13.2% alcohol, so it's not, I mean, I don't know if you could say this is Lodi Sauvignon Blanc, but it's not what people, I don't think it's what people are expecting to come out of Lodi.
No, absolutely not. And you know, I think oftentimes our white wines do surprise people because this is a different kind of portrayal of Sauvignon Blanc, and people have this perception that you're going to get reds, and Lodi is red country, but we're doing whites phenomenally well, and this Sauvignon Blanc is an example of that.
And I think this Sauvignon Blanc in particular, where you get so much grassiness in certain California Sauvignon Blancs, the Musqué clone really strays away from that and goes more to that tropical lychee, pineapple. And it's a clone that was in fact isolated in Monterey back in the 80s and became quite popular in the 90s to plant in certain areas. Very few people attempted to plant this here in the Lodi area. There were not very many Sauvignon Blanc contracts being given out, but to the Lang twins' credit, they were one of the first adopters of this particular clone in this region and proved it to do exceedingly well. So I think it's a preferred clone in my mind to the regular Sauvignon Blanc.
Do you have any Sauvignon Blanc plants?
Amazingly enough,
Amazingly
enough,
as you
this
mentioned,
is the one variety of the many that I have that I've never planted. And I'm a lover of Sauvignon Blanc. Here's another one that I don't have, Semillon. I love Semillon. I don't know if there's a Semillon vineyard in Lodi.
I think there's a little bit, but there's not a whole
yeah,
lot.
there's everything here.
Yeah.
So you have 43 varieties planted?
Yes, yeah. So
Little small
lots of
projects.
whites and reds. Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
the management on that one is, vine by vine, like you were saying, some are more temperamental than others.
I can imagine.
And that's where the intellectual pursuits, like I just need to try what a Charello tastes like. Okay, I'm going to plant it. Like, what am I doing?
But that goes to that experimentation. That's exactly what that kind of innovation and experimentation mindset is here in Lodi. It's looking at something and from another part of the world and saying, this is really interesting. I wonder if I can do it, or I wonder what that tastes like.
Yeah.
And so rather than wondering or going and only relying upon the given indigenous region, our growers are planting it. And they're saying, hey, you know what, let's see how it does.
So that brings us, it's a great intro, lead into the next wine.
Sure.
The
Yes.
Bora Intuition, which is 60% Kerner.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know Kerner was grown in the US. 20% Riesling, 20% Gewurz. Pretty typical sort of Germanic white blend.
So, so this vineyard comes from fruit. The fruit comes from a vineyard that's located on the east side of Lodi, and it happens to be my neighbor directly to the north. And the Koth family is, I believe, 4th generation German. There are many Germans that mostly emigrated from the Dakotas, and before that came from the Volga region of Russia.
They must have thought this was paradise.
Oh.
The Volga region of Russia, the Dakotas, and Lodi!
So they established little towns in the area, and not surprisingly, the one on the east side is called Victor, a good German name. And this particular family has done quite a job at focusing on German varieties, and this is only 3 of the many that they have. Earlier I was mentioning to Cameron that they're going to be planting about 50 different varieties as a varietal Germanic collection in the next couple of days.
And so this is the wine that makes you stop.
Right.
Because Sauvignon Blanc, I get, it fits in a mold that I have for Sauvignon Blanc in California. This is such a unique wine, and so not a warm climate profile in the mouth. It's crisp, it's minerally, it's just a gorgeous little nutty, complex, mouth cleansing style of wine.
Yeah, really beautiful.
It's a fantastic wine, and it really shows, this to me speaks 2 different things. It speaks the history and heritage quite well. I mean, we were settled as a region by Germans and Italians and Portuguese, and we have many of the indigenous varietals or varieties of grapes that were planted here and brought with them to really kind of have that taste of home, so to speak. But this one is fantastic because Steve Bora, the owner of Bora Vineyards, is actually Italian heritage, and he's another one who really experiments and plays around with a lot of different grape varietals. But his winemaker, Marcus Nigli, is Swiss. And so this is a way for Marcus to connect back with his European heritage as well in having a Germanic style and Germanic varietal wine.
And Steve Bora was one of the first people to establish a new bonded winery back in the late 60s, I think it was.
He was.
And he was known for doing Barbera. So
Here in Lodi?
yeah, true to his Italian heritage, he was doing Barbera, and then he would also do Zinfandels. And many years later, then he hired Marcus Nigli, who continued in that realm of doing these beautiful Italian varieties, but also focusing on his own heritage, which is exciting.
Sure.
So we have a question from the blogosphere. Does anybody know if Bora is doing a white rum blend as he's done in the past? That's the question.
That's a good question, and he's playing around with a lot of different things. That's one I'm not 100% certain about right now.
Do we know what the price of this is?
This ranges at about $24.
It's a fabulous
It's a
wine.
fabulous wine, and this is a wine that I always take as a stumper when I'm the road. You know, people obviously realize that I'm representing the Lodi wine region, and I like to.
Yeah, but this can't come from Lodi.
That's what they always say. And you know, I had a couple of master sommeliers at an event I was at last summer, and I said, I want you to, you know, you're a master sommelier. I want you to tell me what this is. It's from Lodi.
That's cool.
And I poured it for them, and they had absolutely no clue. No clue. Blew their mind that, one, there was Kerner being grown in Lodi. There's a little bit of Kerner being grown in Michigan, but the bulk of the rest of it is here in Lodi. And, you know, to have a dry style German blend with Kerner, Gewürz, and Riesling like this is just fantastic. Real stumper. Blew their mind that this is Lodi fruit.
So I just want to go over and turn the camera on our panel of writers just to ask them if anybody, I won't turn it on you unless you want it turned on you, but does anybody have anything they want to share about white wines in Lodi? And before we do that, maybe you want to just introduce yourselves as we pan across. Nanette is drinking already. She's diving in.
Hi, I'm Nanette Eden from Wine Harlots, and I'm in San Diego.
Hi, I'm Bill Heyer, Cuvée Corner Wine Blog, San Diego.
Lizelle Fullen, my Vine Spot, Northern Virginia.
I'm Amy Gross with Vine Sleuth and Wine for Me, and I do want to say that we've really enjoyed some rosés this week that were out of this world, just absolutely fantastic, refreshing, perfect on these warm days. So that has been a nice surprise. I've really enjoyed those.
Another surprise.
Another surprise.
Hi, I'm Ben Carter from Benito's Wine Reviews. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. To answer Greg's question about the white wines of Lodi, I think that's really going to be the future and the true shining star of Lodi. This particular blend here, I think, is the kind of curious thing you saw in old school California wines, where you had these immigrants bringing over lots of different grape varietals, blending lots of different things, trying out crazy combinations. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, but there's so much genetic diversity to work with here in Lodi, and there's nowhere else in the world really where you'd be able to get away with something like this. And so it's really fascinating, and you know, it's part of the character of Lodi, and it's been such a joy to learn about that and spend time with the winemakers and the growers, to actually be out in the vineyards, digging in the dirt, playing with dogs, everything else.
Lots of dogs in Lodi.
Lots of dogs, yes. I believe the vineyard dogs are really the highlight of the trip for everybody.
Wait a minute, it should be the wine and the people.
But the wine is fantastic as well. So.
Anybody have other comments, questions?
Well, I would like to say I was really struck by the collaborative efforts that everybody really does work together. You mentioned earlier it's not just this press thing. Seriously, it was great to see the grape growers call themselves wine growers, and how everybody tries to help each other out, and different families working together to make the best wine from the region. And they just happen to be from different wineries, but they're all working together as a region.
Lodi pride.
I was blown away by the Lodi pride. It was fantastic. It was great to see.
And just because I can, I want to thank our hauler driver, Jenny, who's in the background. She drove us around for 3 days without banging a 15-passenger van into anything. And Stuart, who's desperately trying to hide back there, Stuart Spencer from St. Amant. Anybody else?
How many generations?
How many generations? 6?
No, well, 5th generation farmer, 2nd generation wine grower.
It's the farmer we're interested in today.
Just only the second
Yes.
generation and only 6th generation.
And he's only 22. It's
Yeah.
Lots of gray hair.
That's the winemaking process. Sometimes it can give you gray hair, right?
That and my daughters.
You know, speaking to that Lodi pride and working together, I think one thing that maybe doesn't come to the surface quite often enough is you have over 600 grape growing families here, and there's less than 100 of them that are focused in the wine business. So what happens to the other 500 grape growing families? Well, they are highly, highly supportive of those who are making the wines, because they realize that that has put Lodi on the map in a way that it couldn't really have happened without those. So So instead of getting this fracture or division between those who've gone into the wine business and those who have stayed as grape growers, as you will often see in other regions, here it's quite the opposite. Everybody is supportive of that, and quite often you'll see families that don't ever want to necessarily have a winery, but their son wants to go and get an enology degree so he can come back and work for somebody else, or their daughter wants to get a viticulture degree so she can work in somebody else's vineyard operation. So it's really exciting to see that total support.
It's a vibrant time for wine culture, wine jobs in Lodi.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is interesting that you're probably 1/3 of the way through this transition of grape growers to winemakers. So I could see that there's a lot of opportunity for the next
Yeah.
generation here.
Oh, there is.
Absolutely. And a lot of interest, and you know, some of our families who have been very successful and managed to grow into large wine brands as well are bringing more families back to Lodi and bringing more of their children, and like you were saying, other children back into the fold, and it's really about the total success for the region collectively. I think the old adage that a rising tide raises all boats is absolutely true here in Lodi, and everybody looks at it that way.
So we had a question, unfortunately, I didn't bring a map out, but somebody asked where Lodi is.
Okay.
So without a map, how do we explain where Lodi is?
Really, really simple to explain Lodi. If you can picture the state of California, kind of has this bend, and there's San Francisco that sits partway up and kind of right at the point where it bends from north to south. We sit 90 miles or 90 minutes due east of San Francisco proper, and about 30 minutes due south of Sacramento. So we sit kind of right in the pocket of those two regions, and so it's really, really easy to get here, and it's a
Yeah, it is.
fantastic place.
Absolutely easy to get to, and that explains the cold influence where it's coming from.
Absolutely.
It's coming from the Pacific, you know, that San Francisco's miserably cold in the summer at times, and that filters in here. And the interesting thing is it filters in basically every day. You have what you call delta breezes. This is not a random occurrence. This is at least the 24-hour cycle that you guys go through. Could you explain a little bit what exactly happens?
Well, if you look at all the wine growing regions of Northern California, you'll notice that they all circle around the Bay Area. And so if you go directly north, you'll see Sonoma County. And then as you go clockwise, you get to Napa, then Solano, then you get to Lodi, and then you get to the Oakley area where you have these old vine Movedras and Zinfandels, and then you end up in Santa Clara Valley and San Jose. And all those regions have historically been grape growing regions because of the very similar trend, which is this breeze that comes in during the day, and then at nighttime those temperatures drop. And I know that when we lived in Yountville, we always had the Carneros breeze that would come in at 5 p.m. Well, here I'm sitting near Victor, and I get this beautiful delta breeze that hits us at about 6 p.m. and where the temperature really starts dropping. But during the day, all day long, you feel that breeze. And that's why, if you drive around Lodi, you'll notice that 75% of all the acres planted are planted east-west, so that they can benefit from those breezes going through the
row
vineyards.
orientation.
The row orientation is east-west, and there's a purpose